Final Fantasy VII is a long, story-driven game with lots of challenges along the way, but once you become familiar with it, learn some of the secrets, and are willing to grind a little bit, you can become insanely overpowered. Like defeat bosses in a single attack overpowered. So today we're going to go over the top 5 most overpowered attacks in Final Fantasy VII. A little disclaimer before we start, I know there are some crazy materia combinations that you can put together to do tons of continuous damage. In this list I want to go over more of the just sheer overpowered moves without a crazy amount of materia, but having said that, there will be a couple of exceptions. But let's get into the list with number 5, which is Knights of the Round. Knights of the Round is the most challenging summon to acquire, but for good reason. It is also by far the most powerful summon in the game. If you get it during Disc 2 right off the bat, it does between 45 and 5,000 damage per knight attack. And with 13 knights, that adds up to around 61,000 damage. But once you master it and build up your character's stats, you can do up to 9,999 damage per attack, which ends up being 129,987 damage. That's good enough to take out every single boss in the game, with the exception of some forms of Sephiroth at the very end of the game, Emerald, and Ruby weapon. So basically, anytime you don't want to deal with a boss or a specific enemy, just use Knights of the Round and be done with it. And that's just number 5. Coming in at number 4 is All Lucky Sevens. All Lucky Sevens is a hidden special that puts the character in what I would describe as a trance whenever their HP hits 7,777. When this happens, the character will do 64 attacks in a row, each doing 7,777 damage. That's a total of 497,728 damage. On top of that, any other attacks done after that will continue to do 7,777 damage as long as the character's health remains at 7,777. Now in general, this is something that rarely happens. I think out of all of my playthroughs in Final Fantasy VII, I think I've had this happen to me naturally twice. So it's a pretty rare occurrence unless you can manipulate your health so you can get it to proc more consistently. I've seen some people manage to get their max HP to exactly 7,777, so all they have to do is fully heal themselves. I made a video a long time ago showing how you could beat Ruby Weapon using only Lucky Sevens, and you don't even have to try and put your max HP to that number. Barret seems to be the strongest character doing this because on top of all of those attacks, you can also get his limit break, Anger Max, which does 18 attacks to each do 7,777 damage, which equates to 139,986 damage. So take almost 500,000 damage from the base attack, plus however many times you can do Anger Max before your health changes, and yeah, it adds up to a whole lot of damage. Coming in at number 3 is a controversial one because, as I said at the beginning, I didn't want to do any crazy materia combinations, but I had to make an exception for this one, and it isn't too crazy. If you were to grind magic pots and movers down in the northern cave, it wouldn't take too long to get all the materia you needed mastered. But it's combining mime and counter together as many times as you can, maxing out to 8 times. Then pairing it with Cloud's Omni Slash, Cid's High Wind, or Barret's Anger Max. For this example, we'll use Cloud's Omni Slash against Emerald Weapon. So all you have to do is cast your limit break. After this, Emerald will counter with an attack. This will proc your materia setup to counter with Mime. Mime does whatever the previous move that was done in your party, so as long as you don't do anything else with your other characters, it will always be Omni Slash. Now multiply that by however many times you have counter and Mime paired together. In this case, 8 times, it does over 1 million damage, taking out literally anything in the game. As I mentioned before, it shouldn't take too long to master 8 counters and mimes if you go down to the northern cave. So if you're trying to beat everything, this is probably the most efficient way to do it. But we still have 2 more moves to go. In at number 2 is actually a tie between Barret and Vincent, as they can both do the Overflow glitch attack. This is a somewhat complicated one that involves a lot of math and numbers, so if you're interested in how it works or want a more in-depth explanation, check out 48 Productions, who made a video on how all of this works. He was also nice enough to let me borrow some of his gameplay for this video. A link will be in the description to his channel and his video. But the dumbed down version is, in a normal situation, you can only do 9,999 damage, as that is the cap for all JRPGs at this point. However, you can make Barret and Vincent's weapon so powerful it breaks the game and does an insane amount of damage as if there wasn't a cap at 9,999. The reason why only Barret and Vincent can do this is because of their ultimate weapons. Let's start with Vincent. Vincent's ultimate weapon is Death Penalty, and as you may or may not know, every character's ultimate weapon has a special ability added to it. In this case, Vincent's weapon gets progressively stronger the more enemies you kill with it, maxing out after 65,535 kills. Once the death penalty has that many kills on it and Vincent's attack stat is maxed out at 255, it should only take a couple hero drinks and a death blow attack to achieve the overflow and one-shot anything in the game. Barret's ultimate weapon, Missing Score, acts very differently to achieve the same thing. Instead of kills, Missing Score gets stronger the more AP that's equipped on it, and a Mastered Knights of the Round would be the piece of materia that contains the most AP on it. So if you're down to grind 8 Mastered Knights of the Round, you can simply add them all to Missing Score, take a couple hero drinks, and boom, insta-death to whatever you shoot. I'm honestly not sure what's stronger between this and the number 3 spot, but because this is just a single attack as opposed to many attacks, I'm giving the nod to this one being slightly stronger than number 3, but nothing is stronger than number 1. Can you guess what it is? Yes, the strongest move in the entire game can only be done by Cait Sith. Yeah, that's a thing. And yes, I know that's not how you pronounce it, but that's how I've been pronouncing it for 25 years, and that's how I will continue to do it. Now, if you're not familiar with how this works, Cait Sith has 2 limit breaks, dice and slots. Slots is the second and final limit break for Cait Sith, and it can do a variety of special moves depending on what slots you end up getting. The game over move is achieved when you get these 3 slots, instantly killing anything you are currently up against. And it doesn't matter what, Emerald, Ruby, Sephiroth, it's an instant victory. Meaning if they added another boss to the game with 1 billion hit points, this would still beat it. Now obviously it's not easy to get these slots to match up perfectly, but there is a way to cheese it. Again, I will link 48 Productions video on how to do this if you're interested. And that is my list for the strongest attacks in Final Fantasy VII. I think it has a good variety of options, but I'd love to hear what you use to melt bosses down in the comments section. This is the first video I've posted in a very long time for a variety of reasons, but if you have something you'd like to see a video about, let me know down in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.